So my original goal for this video was just to show the suspension and steering parts installed, but I ended up having to stop recording at this point because I got really frustrated with everything. Essentially every part that I got had to either be modified or just outright didn't fit on the truck, even though all of it says it was made specifically for the SCX10-II. Starting with the upper suspension mounts, which are also the body post mounts. I wanted to go with metal just because of going with the NSDRC RS500B. It's got a lot more power than stock, and I didn't want to break upper suspension mounts. Problem is, you cannot run body posts with these, even though it has a slot for it. When you put these in, your holes to actually secure the body posts don't line up. There should be a hole centered right here, and there is not one, so you can't actually run these. Ended up using the rear ones because part of this build is going to have a new body, and I don't need rear posts because I'm using magnetic mounts for the front and rear. These will not work for, as far as I know, any truck that you have to use front body mounts on because the posts aren't going to fit. Steering wise, everything worked great. The steering arms worked great. I went ahead and did a servo and axle setup to get better articulation, better steering angle. A lot of things work better with it. So now, as far as steering angle is concerned, this thing turns extremely sharp. The steering links were also a bit of an issue. I made it work, but it should have come with 8 of these angled ends. It only came with 2. So I ended up using them on the back just to get a better angle for the links. The fronts, they seem to be doing all right, but I had to use straight links or straight ends on all of the rest of the links. Lengthwise, the links are great, and they're slightly adjustable because those ends thread on, so you can adjust a couple millimeters of length out of front and rear, which also means you can kind of clock your axles to give them a little more or a little less caster. Bumper mounts, which I did not end up showing in the install, were also an issue. I did get aftermarket bumpers, which a lot of people do anyway, but this front one, I had to actually drill out the holes for the mounts because they were too small for even stock or their own bumpers that I ordered. The rears fit fine, but the rears use this very small little screw, which do not fully secure this into place, and it moves, and these screws start to back out. So I'm going to have to put some Loctite. Well, everything's going to end up needing Loctite anyway, because metal into metal, you're going to want to use that. The suspension, or shocks. Awesome little shocks. They are a functional reservoir on here, so you do end up having to use a lot of oil, but so far, no leaking issues. And your final fill can be done through this little cap on the top, which is nice. So you can cycle through your suspension and get all of the air out. So they do have a nice rebound on them. The downside to them is they have extremely stiff springs. It takes, to make this drop, takes close to 10 pounds of force on it. Just measured that by putting weights on there, and it was about 10 pounds that it took to drop it. I have not been able to find any other springs for these. They're a weird size. They're a 15 millimeter internal diameter spring, so everything that I've been able to find is 13 or 14 millimeter, so they won't actually seat onto the spring cups. So I'm going to experiment with probably cutting the springs to get them shorter and then adjusting this down so that I can get a little bit more drop out of it, because right now, even with the new body that weighs a ton on there, it does not drop the suspension at all. And I'm hoping that'll also make the spring rate a little bit lower without having as many coils in it. But we'll see. Worst case scenario, I'll get different shocks. so far, the only part that has gone on without any issues, well, two parts, are the servo and axle mount, which was a very easy install. And then I picked up a different set of upper suspension mounts, which actually ended up working out better. These are the RC Lions ones off of Amazon, but they have a removable panhard mount, which I'm not going to be using that since it's servo and axle. So that was nice to get that out of the way without having to cut it, which normally most of them have something like this sticking off the side so that you can mount that bar. Next video is, I believe, going to be the body install, which I'm currently in the middle of and almost done with. Thanks for watching.